Hi, I'm Paul Feiner.
And I'm Pauline Mosley. Welcome.
And today we're really fortunate. We have a very special guest, Yuriy Kryvoruchko. And Yuriy is a resident of Elmsford, and he is going to be a student next year in one of the military academies, the US Naval Academy, and that's very prestigious. It's very difficult to get. You needed a congressional nomination for that.
Yes, sir.
And you got nominated for other academies as well.
Yes, sir.
And one of the reasons why I thought this would be an interesting program is Yuriy has family in the Ukraine, and you're serving in the US Naval Academy, and your family is serving in the Ukraine.
Yes, sir.
So maybe could you tell us a little bit, why don't we start if you tell us a little bit about yourself and your goals in life, and then we could go into your family.
Of course, it would be a pleasure. And I'd like to, first of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor. And I would also like to thank Mayor Williams of Elmsford. I'd also like to thank the principal of my school, Mr. Engelhardt. And I'd also like to thank the Heck family for really helping me to get here, because without you guys, I wouldn't have to been able to achieve these feats. But a little bit about me. I'm 18 years old. I am finishing school in a couple of weeks, and June 27th is going to be induction day at the Naval Academy. So I won't really have a lot of free time in between graduation and my induction day, since graduation is on the 25th. But I am Ukrainian. My family is all in Ukraine. The only people I have here are my parents and my cat. And I come from a military family in Ukraine, where essentially my whole family, apart from my sister's family, currently serve in the Ukrainian Navy or the Ukrainian Army. My dad, for example, he is a retired naval commander from the Ukrainian Navy. I have an uncle that's currently a naval commander. My brother is a lieutenant in the Ukrainian Navy. And my cousin and his wife are lieutenant colonels in the Ukrainian Army. So we do constantly, stay updated and keep in touch with our family and see how it's, how everything is going on and if everyone's okay. And sometimes there are stressful moments where we don't get to talk to them because of operational silence. But it's all the more motivation for me to pursue the same path here in the United States, since I'm the only American citizen in my family. And I would say it's a mix of family heritage and a desire to serve my country, where, again, I grew up on coastal cities, whether it's New York City, whether it's Odessa in mainland Ukraine, whether it's Sevastopol in the Crimean Peninsula. I've always been indulged in naval culture from my family, from all the naval parades. And when I heard about the Naval Academy when I was very little, I instantly, that was my dream, that was my goal, and I'm starting a new chapter in life. So,
well, what motivates people in Ukraine to keep, fighting, and what's your thought on that?
I think the biggest motivational factor for people fighting in Ukraine is the will to keep going and defend homeland. It's a natural instinct. I remember actually reading an article about this, where any group of defenders will always have higher morale than the attackers, because those defenders grew up in those lands. Those lands are cherishable to them. They're holy to them. That's where their family grew up. That's where they're planning to live the rest of their lives. And when they see someone try taking it away, it's all it's like a switch inside the human mentality, where they do everything they can and they fight tooth and nail to keep their homeland. So. And
was it very difficult to get accepted into the academies? I mean, you got accepted in how many?
So I was officially accepted into 4. I was accepted into the Naval Academy, the Coast Guard Academy, the Merchant Marine Academy, and the Air Force Academy. And I did get a 3 qualification letter from West Point, but I do have to say it was a very, very rigorous process that you really have to just start early. If I ever gave advice to anybody that would have wanted to apply to the academies, you just have to start as early as possible. Even before third grade, when I still lived in Brooklyn, I was already starting to build my resume by doing as many extracurriculars as possible, applying for any possible leadership roles that I could have applied for. And I do have to thank my parents for that as well, because they guided me in that process. And then towards later age, did the exact same thing. Applied and became captain of my sports teams, made sure that my teams are their needs are met. I did volunteering, right? One big event that I did was a humanitarian aid fund for Ukraine when the war first started. Interestingly enough, the war started the day after my birthday. I was born on the 23rd, and then the official date for the war starting is the 24th. And after I found that out, I was just, my whole world was turned over. And so knowing that my family was fighting, I couldn't just sit back and watch and wait. So I did, through the help of the mayor and my friends and family, I started a humanitarian aid fund around Elmsford, spread the word spread like fire. People were lining up in cars to my driveway to give boxes of donations of anything from diapers to food and medical supplies. And we collected about 50-pound boxes. And there was so much coming in that the logistical companies that were ferrying the stuff were actually saying, like, wait, like, there's too much.
Oh, wow.
So it was a great success, and I thank everybody who participated in that. But that was a great volunteering opportunity. And essentially, back to the advice, just do as much as you can and start as early as possible, because the academies look for a well-rounded person. They look for academics, they look for physical fitness, and they look for leadership. So if you strive in all three, you have a very good chance at getting in.
Who sponsored you, and which congressperson?
I was, to the Naval Academy, I was nominated by Congressman Jamal Bowman, and I thank him endlessly for it. We did apply for other nominations, but the one that we got for the Naval Academy and the one that I chose, right, because I am going to the Naval Academy, was Congressman Bowman, yes.
And how like political or apolitical is the process? Do you have to be active in politics to get a letter of recommendation, or is it like an honest, fair process with people?
So I would say it's pretty apolitical, but you do have to know what's going around, in the world. When I was interviewed, it was a panel of veterans. It was a panel of people who work for Congressman Bowman. And when they were asking me questions, they were just asking me questions about myself. What kind of a leader I am. If you're participating in an activity, who are you? What would you do in this instance? There wasn't really any politically, sided questions, but I would say that you have to know kind of like what's going on in your country. Yeah.
Right.
Right. So I wanted to say, first of all, Yuriy, congratulations on all your phenomenal achievements. Just blown away. Secondly, I would like to know, how does a student like yourself cultivate discipline and focus and fortitude, because you don't reach these heights of success and all of these naval academies wanting you just overnight. So for students and for just everyone, you're a role model, inspiration for all of us trying to achieve whatever level of success we are. How do you maintain your focus and to be disciplined for such a long period of time?
I do have to say that it comes from effective time management and effective goal setting. And my dad taught me this. I think ahead in life. I try not to live, I live in the moment, right? But when it comes to, thinking about my future and staying focused and disciplined, I set goals and I make sure that I reach them, right? So, for example, right now I'm already planning kind of how I'm going to be, working in the academy, what my time management is going to be like. I'm already reaching out to alumni to see how it works in the academy. And my end goal would be to graduate as a pilot in the US Navy. So I'd say it's just to, manage your time well. Best possible, strategies are, having a calendar. You should see my calendar. Wow. It is a mess. It looks like a 2-year-old just doodled all over it, But, having a calendar, making to-do lists if you have a lot of tasks, right? So for example, if, I have a lot of tests coming up, which I did, for example, AP season, I'm sure, all the kids know what I'm talking about. I made a to-do list of like when each date is for assignments, for finals, right? So I keep track of all my tasks. And then for long-term goals, I write them down and I set dates for each goal. So that keeps me focused.
That's
phenomenal.
It really is amazing. In terms of the Ukraine, the war has been going on for such a long period of time. And do your relatives, this is like a war of attrition, where Russia is figuring that the longer it goes on, it gets more and more discouraging. To people, how do they feel that it's going on so long, and do they get discouraged by the fact that in the United States we really have given too little, too late?
Right. I wouldn't say it's necessarily mind-breaking where allies take their time in giving aid, especially because, again, about the will of defending your homeland. Even if we don't get supplies from our allies, there's still the will to fight, even if it's, again, like a massacre and it's tooth and nail, and that you might not get out. You're still gonna fight for your country because that's where you grew up. That's where your family grew up. That's where your parents and grandparents are buried. It's something that you just don't give up. But it is very tough mentally when that you're going up against the second superpower in the world, and you need every bit of help, and that essentially the future of the world depends on the war, on the outcome of the war.
What is like the mindset of somebody who is willing to risk their life for the country? Like, why would you? I mean, you could do, you're obviously brilliant and you have a fantastic future. Why would you choose a military career?
So, I've always been, again, indulged in a military culture in my family. So I do know, the risks that come with it. But it only heightened the want to serve my own country, the United States of America. And when I think of it, I think I'm very active in world politics and what's going on and diplomacy between countries, especially because my dad works in the United Nations. So I'm constantly, even if I don't want to, I'm always hearing about world news. And so I care for how the United States looks on the world platform and for our own, defense of freedom and democracy and for the sake of our own people. So combining that with, again, a military culture that's been fostered since birth, right? It only created, this powerful mix of want to serve, right?
Passion.
Of patriotism. That's the word I was thinking about. Right, of pure American patriotism, and that's why I want to go into the military. Yes.
So you mentioned you were the captain of a team.
Yes.
Could you elaborate on what team and what sport and what did the team do under your leadership?
Of course. I was a captain of cross country, and I was captain of baseball on my school teams. I was co-captain last year, and then again a captain for this year, and that was for the fall season. And then same thing with baseball, which actually ended a week ago. So
and that's in the Elmsford schools?
That's in Alexander Hamilton High School, yes.
And how did the teams do?
The cross country team was pretty good. The baseball team, we actually went our second season positive. Last year was our first time going positive, like a positive record, winning record.
Wow.
Since the last, I think, 38 years. So yeah, it was
That's
a very
fantastic.
big event. And then this year we actually went 7-7, or 8-8, but we went neutral, so that counts as a positive record. So I'm very proud of my team.
Congratulations!
After saying this video, I bet you there's a lot of people who are going to want to move to Elmsford so they can go to the Elmsford.
It is a great school. It is an amazing school, and I owe a debt of life to it. I'm thankful to every single one of the teachers, to Mr. Engelhardt. That they really nurtured me from the very base when I moved here. When I moved here, I didn't know anybody, right? I didn't know how Elmsford and Greenburgh worked, and again, I got nothing but support from them. So yeah.
And you moved from the city or from the
from the city? I was born in Manhattan, and I grew up in Brooklyn. And again, I was the first born American citizen, so everyone else is from Ukraine. And then in 2015, when I was in 3rd grade, that's when we moved up to Elmsford. Yes. Does
your family still feel like Ukrainian? Is there, in terms of the Ukrainian culture, is it very, are most of your family friends also Ukrainian, or?
Of course. And I actually do a good amount of activities that concern Ukrainian culture in the United States. I've finished a school in Ukrainian studies. I've went there since 2012, so it is a fully, it's a fully established school in Manhattan that teaches geography, culture, literature, language, right, and everything else that a normal Ukrainian student in Ukraine would learn. And so I graduated from there. That's where I learned.
Was that the Ukrainian school?
Yes.
There's a gentleman, Ivan Makar.
Yes, Ivan Makar. Yeah, that was my director.
Oh, yes. Really? So because I've been in touch with him. In fact, we put up the Ukrainian flags on East Hartsdale Avenue, and that was because of him.
Yep.
And then we took it down before the Memorial Day parade, and I almost gotten crucified. But I've been impressed. What makes Ukraine such a special place?
What makes it such a special place? Well, I'd say it really depends on the person, right, and their family and how they grew up in Ukraine. But in general, I'd say it's the people and the culture. It's a historical fact that a lot of Slavic countries have mixed cultures, right? Especially Russians and Ukrainians, where there's essentially, this also could be considered a cultural war, right? But if you ever, post-war, or if you've been to Ukraine pre-war, you know that the culture and the people there are so welcoming, and it's beautiful. I mean, our flag represents the yellow and blue colors are fields of wheat and a clear blue sky, right? It's just the culture is so unique.
And it must be difficult for a Ukrainian and to be actually fighting somebody who could be 5 years ago could have been a friend.
Yeah, and there are a lot of instances in Ukraine right now where, there's brothers fighting brothers, dads fighting sons. It's horrific. It's unspeakable. It's unspeakable. It's something out of a pure nightmare. But it is what's going on in the front lines, and again, it's really sad that it happens. But I heard you mention the Ukrainian community. It's a small world, right? I mean, I had no idea that you knew Mr. Makar. He was my principal. He was my director, and another thing that we did, it's kind of a joint activity with the Ukrainian school, is something called Plast, which is essentially Ukrainian Boy Scouts, right? They have the exact same thing as BSA, right, as Boy Scouts of America, but just infused with Ukrainian culture. And, again, there's ranks, you foster kids, then those kids grew up and then foster the new generation, right? There's camp counselors, there's summer camps, right? International summer camps. It's an international organization that's based in Ukraine and is pretty big in New York. Not New York, in the United States in general. There's stations in New York, in Seattle, in Cleveland, even in Canada, in Toronto. I have a lot of friends that are in Toronto from Plast. So, I mean, but just like all that to say, there is a huge and thriving Ukrainian community in the States. Yeah.
And do you have any siblings?
I do. I have my oldest sister who actually is married and has 2 kids in Ukraine.
Okay.
My younger sister, who's a professor, she's also married and she actually had a kid as well. And my brother, who is currently serving as a lieutenant in the Navy. Yeah.
In the United States Navy?
No, in the Ukrainian Navy.
Ah, so you're the
So you're the youngest.
I'm the youngest. Yeah, I'm the baby.
and you're the only American.
Yes, yes.
Are you? Do you have like a dual citizenship as a Ukrainian?
No, I'm just an American citizen.
So are you, as an American, would have you been able to say, okay, I'm going to fight in Ukraine instead of fighting instead of being part of the Naval Academy? Would have that been an option also?
Well, there are volunteers in the U.S. forces that are veterans, right? That have fought on their own, accord, right? But if I were to be in the U.S. Navy officially, I don't think I'd be able to fight in Ukraine. Unless it's a full deployment and worst case scenario, which again, everybody is crossing their fingers that this never happens, right? If the United States actually gets involved and troops are on the ground in Ukraine, I probably wouldn't be involved, no.
So fascinating. Do you think at the end of the war, when the war finally is over, do you feel that Ukraine should compromise a little bit, or just fight for every bit
for everything.
bit of the land?
Yeah.
And that's because if they start compromising, they will then gradually lose and lose and lose.
Yes. So for a lot of Ukrainians, and especially for my family, this war actually started in 2014, where, again, I mentioned that I grew up in Sevastopol in Crimea because my dad had to go on a mission for the United States and they couldn't leave a 2-month-old baby by itself to a babysitter. So they actually sent me to my grandparents in Sevastopol, and that's where I grew up. That's where I learned Ukrainian. And that's where I learned my Ukrainian culture. And when they annexed Crimea in 2014, that's when the war started for us, because that's when we were kicked out of our home. That's when we had to move to Odessa, to mainland Ukraine, because if we would have stayed, we would have been traitors, right? We lost essentially everything, right? And Sevastopol was the biggest naval base in Ukraine, right? It was on the Crimean Peninsula. We lost that, we lost our home, we lost our farm. So for me, the war started in 2014. And if I was a Ukrainian, I'd go lengths to even just take back Crimea. I would push them out completely because they're never going to stop. The Russians are never going to stop. They're going to fight. They might call a ceasefire and make up a border such as North Korea and South Korea, right? And in maybe 10 more years, they're going to do the exact same thing. So.
I'm just like so impressed that you are so smart and so articulate.
Very articulate.
I mean, you're really impressive. And I'm wondering if, because of your culture, and you have family in the Ukraine, they're fighting, if that sort of helped you become as motivated as you are. Is there something about being an immigrant in the United States, or from an immigrant's family, that helps make you successful?
I'm definitely grateful for what happened with me and my family, because again, my parents are immigrants, right? They came here. I was very lucky to be born in the States, and it's very hard for a first generation student to actually, achieve such feats, such as even just getting to a college, right?
Absolutely.
And to, students that are apathetic, I see them, I see it happening every day. I see it getting worse. I'd say it's probably something that starts off with the family, right? Where, for example, the discipline that I have right now came from my parents, right? They taught me, they fostered me, they showed me how to survive in life. And for people who are apathetic, I want what's best for them, and I'm gonna pray that they do good in life and that they stay motivated.
Yeah, well, you're definitely an inspiration to us all. And you definitely have a very high level of excellence, and I can see your parents and family must be so proud of you. It's one thing for parents to make sacrifices, but you've made sacrifices as well. and in order to achieve this great level of success, and it's just going to springboard you to further successes. And we're so happy and so proud that you're in our community and going to serve our country. So we thank you so much.
Besides being a brilliant student and somebody who's going to be an exceptional member of the military, you're also an accomplished saxophonist. I met you at the Little League game, and you were playing the alto saxophone. I studied alto saxophone when I was a student, but I was not anywhere close to as good as you are. And maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your musical
Career
interests.
Yeah, so I'd love to talk about it. I started playing music when I was 5. The first instrument I ever played was the piano, and I've been playing the piano for 14 years now, pushing 14, right? And then when I moved to Elmsford in 2015, that's when I fully, I was able to get the opportunity to grasp the saxophone. When, I got into the school and they asked me, pick an instrument. And I was like, man, I've always listened to jazz. My mom loves jazz. I wanted to try the sax, and it took off from there. I love playing it. I play classical, I play jazz, I play pop. Give me a song and I'll learn it and I'll play it for you. And I'd say the biggest today feat that I have done in my musical career is NISMA. There's different levels in NISMA,
yes,
right?
I know.
I got to level 6, got 100 on that, and then used that as my audition for NISMA All-State, and I fortunately got in. We had their concert last year in December. I made a lot of great friends. I met my girlfriend there, and it was such an unforgettable experience. I remember when we played that first note to tune up, and it sounded like something euphoric, But I do have to, I gotta thank Mr. Arthur Sine and Miss Tomoko Yuchino. They kind of, again, nurtured this musical talent in me that I have right now. I still keep in touch with both of them.
That's great.
And they both, I wouldn't have been able to do it without them. So.
And we'll be able to view on this program your saxophone performance at the Little League game. I hope you have a great, successful life ahead, and I also hope Ukraine will be independent and will win the war, because it's really important for the world. So what you're doing is really appreciated, and best of luck to all your family members. If they're like you, then I'm optimistic that we'll win.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor. See you soon.